In this first example, we have the permanganate ion plus sulfurous acid makes sulfate and manganese, 2+. Now, if you look at this and you tried to balance it using the methods we've used before, you might notice there is no hydrogen on the product side. So this isn't going to balance just by adjusting coefficients. So when we look at this, we try and find things that go together. And I don't really know a good way to explain this except look at the atoms that make up the species in there. So I have permanganate here that has manganese in it, and I have manganese over here. Does it make sense that the manganese pieces should be in the same half reaction? That's kind of how I think of it. So we write one half reaction. Permanganate yields manganous ion. Then the sulfurous acid and the sulfate ion both contain sulfur, so they make the other half. So I think of it as kind of looking at the pieces that seem to go together. So I write H2SO3 yields SO4 2-. Now I have two half reactions. I'm going to work on each half reaction by itself, going through those steps. Now, for this demonstration, I am going to rewrite this at every step. Normally, when I'm going through these steps, I don't rewrite it. I just do it in one line because I've been practicing enough I can do that. But at the beginning, it might be helpful to rewrite it because that'll help you find your mistakes. And I'm pretty sure that I will demonstrate at least once how easy it is to screw this up. Because as you start multiplying and moving things around, it's easy to make mistakes. And you always have to stop and check at certain critical points. So we start off by balancing each half, except for oxygen and hydrogen, by inspection. 1 manganese, 1 manganese. Now we balance the oxygen by adding water. 4 oxygens, no oxygens on the right. So I'm going to add 4 water molecules to the right-hand side. So I get my permanganate yields manganese plus 4 waters because now I have 4 oxygens on each side of the equation. Now I'm going to look at this for hydrogen. Now I have 8 hydrogens on the right and I have no hydrogens on the left. Since this is an acid solution, I have free hydrogen ions in solution. So I'll add my 8 hydrogen ions plus permanganate yields manganese plus 4 waters. Now previously we worked on balancing equations and we made sure we had the same number of each atom of each type on both sides. Well, I have 8 hydrogens, 8 hydrogens. 1 manganese, 1 manganese. 4 water, 4 water. But this is not balanced because over here I have a +8 charge and a -1. So I have a total of a +7 charge on this left-hand side. And over here I have a +2 charge. So I have to make the charges the same. It will not be 0, but it will be the same. So I'm going to add the difference between 7 and 2 is 5 electrons. So I add 5 electrons to the more positive side. So I now have 5 electrons plus 8 hydrogen ions plus a permanganate ion, yielding the manganese ion plus 4 waters. At this point, always, always, always go back and check because it is so easy to make mistakes with this. So I have 8 hydrogens, 8 hydrogens. Manganese, manganese. 4 oxygens, 4 oxygens. -5 and a -1 is a -6, plus 8 is a +2. +2. So I now have a balanced half reaction. Now I'm going to work on the other half reaction. 1 sulfur, 1 sulfur. 3 oxygens, 4 oxygens. So I need to add 1 water to the left-hand side. So water plus sulfurous acid gives me a sulfate ion. Now I'll look at my hydrogens. I have 2 hydrogens here, plus 2 here is 4, 0 hydrogens on the right. So I will add 4 hydrogen ions to the right-hand side. So I have water plus sulfurous acid yields sulfate plus 4 hydrogen ions. Now, when I look at this, I'm going to go ahead now and evaluate my charges. I have 0 charge on the left, and I have a -2 and a +4. That gives me a +2. I have 0 on this side and +2 on the right. The difference is 2 electrons. So I add 2 electrons to the right-hand side. So I have water plus sulfurous acid yields sulfate plus 4 hydrogen ions plus 2 electrons. Now at this point, we're going to check 2 hydrogens plus 2 is 4, 4 hydrogens. 1 oxygen plus 3 is 4, 4 oxygens, 1 sulfur, 1 sulfur. 0 charge, -2, -4, plus 4 is 0. So I'm balanced. And the next thing to check is, do I have electrons on different sides in the 2 equations? Here the electrons are on the reactant side. So whatever is here is gaining electrons. This is the reduction half. Here the electrons are on the product side. These materials have lost electrons. That's the oxidation half. If you have 2 half reactions and they both have electrons on the same side, something is wrong. So always look to see, do I have electrons on the reactant side in one half and the product side in the other half? Now it's time to put this back together. We put it back together by looking at the number of electrons in each half reaction and making them the same. I have 5 electrons here and 2 electrons there. So I kind of do the least common denominator thing. I'm going to multiply this half reaction by 2, and I'm going to multiply this half reaction by 5. So now I'm going to multiply them out and then add them together. So I'm going to multiply this whole thing by 2. So I get 10 electrons plus 16 hydrogen ions plus 2 permanganates yields 2 manganese plus 8 waters. This is where it's really easy to screw things up when you start multiplying and rewriting. Now I'll multiply here. 5 waters plus 5 sulfurous acid yields 5 sulfates plus 20 hydrogens plus 10 electrons. Now I have 2 half reactions. I'm going to add them together. I'm going to add all the reactants together and all of the products together. So I'll start off with the reactants on top. Ten electrons plus 16 hydrogen ions plus 2 permanganate plus 5 waters plus 5 sulfurous acid. That's all my reactants added together. Yields 2 manganese plus 8 waters plus 5 sulfates plus 20 hydrogens plus 10 electrons. So I think I've done this right. Now I'm going to look at this and see if there's anything that appears on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. And if it does, I'll cancel it. 10 electrons on each side. I have 16 hydrogen ions on the left and 20 hydrogen ions on the right. So I can cancel 16 hydrogen ions. That leaves me 4. 2 permanganate, no permanganate. 5 waters, 8 waters. I can cancel 5 waters, leaving me 3. Now I'm going to rewrite this and go ahead and check and make sure I didn't mess things up. So I have 2 permanganates plus 5 sulfurous acid yields 2 manganese plus 3 waters plus 5 sulfates plus 4 hydrogen ions. Now, do you see how easy it would be to mess things up as you're writing and rewriting and adding? It really is. So now we go back and check. Always check. 2 manganese, 2 manganese. 2 times 4 is 8 oxygens. 5 times 3 is 15 plus 8 is 23 oxygens. 3 here, 5 times 4 is 20, 23. 10 hydrogens. 6 hydrogens here plus 4 is 10. 5 sulfur, 5 sulfur. I already did oxygen. Now I'll do the charges. 2 times a -1 plus 0, that's a -2 charge. 2 times a +2 is a +4. 5 times -2, -10, plus 4. 4 and 4 is 8, minus 10 is a -2. So I managed to get through this first example without messing anything up. And I have a balanced reaction.